108.8 million, of which we spent about 113. There you will note that in terms of compensation of employees, we overspent in the period before, whereas in the period under review, we actually underspent. What Treasury did, they actually took our, you know that the goods and services was 39.8 million, and we spent about 32. So taking that into consideration, what then Treasury did, they moved, instead of us giving us additional fund, they moved funds from goods and services to compensation of employees. But that couldn't help us because we end up overspending on goods and services from where the money was. I think this is the picture that the department is going. We find ourselves in situations whereby we have to deliberately slow spending so that we can cover from one economic classification to another as Treasury moves the money between the two economic classifications. I think that will be my presentation, because you know that the next slide is just the narrative of what I have just indicated. That will be my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. That will be the presentation. Chair, just a few issues. There are issues of irregular expenditure that have been highlighted in an AG report as well, dating from 2016, 2017, and 2018. One issue had to do with DPCI judge. I must just indicate that that process, there was a discussion between the former Chief Justice and ourselves in relation to report the matter and so forth. And that process has now gone to a point where we've even reported the matter to JSC, and we've just received a response some time back that they are looking into the matter. There were other two matters that related to a travel agency. That matter has been reported to the Hawks, and we are following the investigation in relation to that particular matter. And then the last matter was in relation to a procurement, which involved the former minister, and that matter we are now at a point where legal services have been engaged to see as to whether we cannot move towards recouping that particular money, which happened around 2017 or so. And the process of condonation from National Treasury on all matters have now been processed, and we're just waiting for responses from National Treasury on all the matters. Thanks, Chair. That's our presentation.
Esther?
Thanks, Chairperson. I just have some very brief remarks. One is that I have the impression that the capacity that is available in the Civilian Secretariat has perhaps been underutilized. You've seen in a number of areas, legislative drafting, for instance, and in some critical areas that I'm interested in, community policing is another. They've been doing some important work, excuse me, and so as we think about trying to orientate SAPS over the next 2 decades or so, I think an important question with which the committee can also help us is what is the role of civilian oversight, because in some ways the original vision for civilian oversight, the constitutional vision, at some point appeared to be abandoned because it was not working, and I think there was a tension between, on the one hand, ministers having the expectation that they could build a cooperative relationship with the department they were supposed to lead, and a civilian oversight model that appeared to put the ministry against the police. But that was a legitimate question, but the question then is whether the baby was thrown out with the bathwater, because you can see from the report that this is a viable institution, that it's well run, and that it has capabilities that I think a ministry needs in order to provide direction to the police, and it is something that I'm going to be looking at going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Thank you to the team for the presentation. I must say you are to the point. You did a very good and quick job of the presentation. I'm going to give an opportunity to the members to ask questions. I actually have a comment/question to start with, and it touches on what the Minister said, and that specifically just, and it can be very brief, along with the answers to the other members. But how do we, what do you think can we do to bring that the ministry and Secretariat closer to each other, that it's not in isolation? Because the perception is very often that, you know, the minister does his thing and the ministry, broadly speaking, you don't always get the impression that there's such a close link. And I think there's a real positive opportunity the way that you've described it. I know D.M. Matale, the way that he's previously described it as well. I think there's an opportunity. To the members, Honourable Ghana, Honourable Schikkeling, Honourable James, Honourable Skosana. Honourable Ghana.
Thanks, Chair. And to the point that you raise, so the minister and the deputy ministers have got advisors. So the ministerial handbook says we've got advisors. But to the greater advantage of the ministry, you have the Secretariat. So over and above the advisors, your next basically is almost similar to what the presidency has. That you have this skill that if they are better utilized, then the outcomes are better. Because if you look at what the civilian secretariat has to do, they and the ministry must be like this, you know, like so before there's any, so even before or when, as you go for cabinet, as you go for imbizo, I will argue that the minister's imbizo, the civilian secretariat has to be there. You know, like it should not be that the minister goes to an imbizo and then the secretariat is not there. You know, like the two needs to be working together. And I'll focus my kind of questions and congratulations. I should have started there. Congratulations, you've done well, and I've said that before they get to the airport. We don't have a problem with you. We spent the whole day with yourselves there. But I think one of the areas, especially in Program 4, so the numbers are correct. So the numbers you succeed. But what maybe will benefit us as a committee for the when you do your quarterlies will be after you have received this budget, when you have assessed the budget and the program performance of the police, what is the opinion? What is your assessment? Because to say that you have done it, yes, you have done it, it's okay. But to enrich in a way the work that we do and also oversight, it's what is your assessment? Because it's not just to say our target is 4 assessments. We have done the 4 assessments. But what is contained in those assessments? Because that's what will get us to the next level. And I will presume that is where, together with the ministry, you then say, all right, we think here's the challenge. This is what you, as you come to the portfolio, this is our report that you need to then present to the portfolio, so that the ultimate is to get South Africans safe. And we must not feel like, you know, like there's there should not be any turf war. We should be one and the same thing and work closely. Because I think that also linked to the CPF and just the general education. I raised it could have been the debate or something, but I raised it in Parliament last week. Yeah, it was to the Deputy President. One of the things that has unfortunately, I say unfortunately, is, you see, the collapse of SABC education has robbed the country greatly. Because people, part of the, let's call vigilantism and mob justice and wanting for instant justice is because people don't, sometimes they don't understand. Because we have de-invested in educating about where the police comes in. Yes, we arrest, but releasing someone on bail, for instance, doesn't mean that they are not guilty. And you cannot just pass judgment by arrest. So that level of education, as we do our imbizos, that's where I see the role that the Secretariat going forward needs to play, so that, you know, I always say, I don't celebrate an immediate arrest. Say someone is mentioned at the ad hoc committee, go and arrest. No, we can't celebrate that. I celebrate when they are convicted. That's where the celebration must happen. Not arrest today, tomorrow you are released on bail. And then you are like, all right, then what? We must start saying, all right, yes, appear in court, let's finalize the case, but the celebration is when someone is convicted. And this is where it goes into the education side of things. And it, as a recommendation from me to you, to say, as we educate, people must not celebrate a quick arrest today, and then tomorrow the person is released. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Ghana. I then hand over to Honourable James.
Thank you so much, Chair. I want to ask, what tools do you use for oversight? When you conduct oversight, I see that you've reached your target. You've conducted 2 oversights. I want to understand what tools do you use, and I want to understand the cost involved of these oversights. As things stand, community engagements, I think that should be your key focus, right, as the Civilian Secretariat. How many have you had? And also, what is the cost implications when it comes to community engagement? I'm asking this, Chair caught me off guard with my questions, because I'm sitting here and I'm trying to understand. As a Member of Parliament, I have conducted probably over 10 oversights within the period of 4 weeks. You have a budget of 150 million, and you have conducted 2 oversights. I'm trying to make sense of it. The last time we came and we spoke and we said that the Civilian Secretariat, you mentioned Civilian Secretariat to the public. It's unknown, it's anonymous to South Africans. No one knows the Secretariat. I almost feel as if there's absolutely, Minister, no use for the Secretariat. We can much rather use this money to pump up and divert it, and this is not an attack on the members, to SAPS. This is not the first time we get these presentations, and if I listen to the numbers within a space of a year, 2 and 5 and 3, is it acceptable when you are serving a country? When I listen to your assessments, what have you assessed? What are the outcomes? Why is it that your presence is not being felt in communities? What are you doing in terms of marketing the Secretariat? So I think I'm still a little bit in shock when it comes to your numbers and your oversight, and I look at the budget allocation, and I look at your staff complement that you have, and here you are telling us today that we must be okay with 2 oversights. You are based in Pretoria. If only you covered that Pretoria and Johannesburg area, that doesn't involve costs or any sleepovers or anything, that would actually show will from the Secretariat. But right now, as things stand, this is another Secretariat that needs to be disbanded immediately, in my view. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable James. I then go to Honourable Shikelin.
Thank you, Chair. Honourable James has covered me to a certain extent, and Honourable Garner. So I'll just go to the others. Part of what you said is you do oversight to make sure and you check whether the SAPS is implementing IPID's recommendations. I would like to know if they are doing it. Are they implementing the IPID recommendations? And then to come in with Honourable James's, truthfully, I mean, if it wasn't for being here, I wouldn't know about the Civilian Secretariat either, because it's not something that is, I almost want to say, advertised. People aren't educated about it. So how do you go about educating and conscientizing people and advertising that you're having public participation and in BZOs and things? Because I've never seen it advertised anyway. So I just would like to know how you do that. We do have 9 provinces. I see that you do quite extensive work. I think it was the Western Cape and Gauteng. But the smaller provinces, you largely do maybe 2 or 3. To me, that's not enough. I understand the bigger provinces need more, but it feels to me like you're not covering the whole spectrum of the country. And I can promise you, if you go to of the smaller provinces, they also won't know that you exist. So I think you need to make people more aware. I think there needs to be a definite awareness of what you do, especially with the fact that you're receiving a large amount of money. I am concerned. I saw that you recorded an advance to CETA of 662,000 Rand for antivirus software for 3 years. I'm always concerned when we do prepayments to people. I mean, I don't know why we advance payment to CETA, but this doesn't explain the upsurge in computer expenditure. So can you just tell us why there's such a big increase? And then you did speak about handing over something to the Hawks. I just want to know, is this part of the investigation into the almost 1.1 million rands irregular expenditure linked to the DPCI judge? Because there's it's 1.089 million. I just want to know if that's linked to that. And yeah, that's all. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Schikkerling. Then I go to Honourable Skosana.
Thank you, Chair. I've got mixed feelings, because when you speak about the Civilian Secretariat, which we have in this country, Minister, I'm one of the founding members. I was young during those years. I'm just making a comment first. During the 1990 negotiation, I was still with you during those years. And, when we started this Civilian Secretariat, in the department we were 5. In Mpumalanga we were 5. The minister, the PA, the secretary, the driver, and myself. Today is among the biggest department in Mpumalanga. My only worry, Chair, is that the department is still underfunded. And the biggest issue which I have as well, of what I've seen, I heard Honorable Ghana say that when there is Imbizo, but Imbizo was boycotted by other ministers. We were told other ministers and ministers of the DA is wasteful expenditure and that. They politicized that. I think you remember, Honorable Member, there was one in Bloemfontein. It was boycotted. And in KZN, if I remember, I might be wrong in the one, but it was boycotted. And I think government need to rethink and perhaps strengthen the Civilian Secretariat for one particular reasons as well. As you know that during those years we used to, we had a problem. There was resistance of the so-called, in the farms, so-called commandos. But we had a vibrant MEC, Steve Mabona. You know, we used to go and when they lock the case in the farms, we will unlock it with a firearm. We'll shoot that lock there. And we'll have access because they were denying our people to bury their own in those farms. Now, my plea is that the budget, Minister, please, the budget as well, and as our members here, I'm going to lobby as well here, that their budget be increased. Because when you look at the police community forum, there's a lot of issues. In fact, when you go back 10 years, say 10 to 15 years ago, it used to be very, very, very effective. Now we are using security companies. And security companies are armed, some of them are armed even better than our South African police service, which is a cause for concern. And I think we must revisit that, Chair, the issue of security companies having so many firearms, rifles, displaying them like, you know, there's no tomorrow. And we are losing some of our members in the South African police service, those who are highly trained, because they offer them better salaries. Now, we have to regulate that as well, and perhaps have a strict conditions, because we can't have so many security companies helping our police, but they are more armed than the police. We want a friendly relationship between the police and the society itself. And the civilian secretariat can play a big role in that. You know, I know that they are being undermined, hence the budget, you know, when you see the budget, you know, and I think for us to build social cohesion, we need the civilian secretariat. I know that we have IPID, but indeed, you know, we need a civilian secretariat to make sure that whatever is happening in the police service, the mandate of the civilian secretariat is carried out. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Skosana. Honourable Kluter.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Also allow me to welcome the presentation from the Civilian Secretariat. I need to ask a few questions regarding the presentation. What were the main objective of the Civilian Secretariat for the police service during the 24-25 financial year? How did the President's State of the Nation address impact the focus and the priorities of the Civilian Secretariat for police service? What measures did the Civilian Secretariat for police service take to enhance the implementation of the oversight recommendations? Then I also wanted to check, the department should elaborate on the outcome of the assessments of the Community Safety Forum and the Community Policing Forums. It is noted that one SMS member did not sign a performance agreement. The department should clarify this non-compliance and indicate the remedial steps taken. The department should explain the nature of the MOU with the Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs and how this may assist with the implementation of the integrated crime and violence prevention strategy. The department should indicate what steps will be taken to address the vacancies and turnover rates of the department. And the last question, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members, the persons with disability comprise at 1.33% of staff, which is below the DPSA 2% benchmark. The department should elaborate on how the MIU with the South African Disability Alliance is translating into the recruitment. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Kluter. Mr. Sibuya, over to you.
Thanks, Chair. Just to start from Honorable Klute, we are discussing with the Department of Women and People with Disability in terms of targeted recruitment around issues of people with disability. And in 2023-24, we were complying, and through, because the movement of people in terms of recruitment, it's not static. So that's where the problem is, and we had said probably we need that database so that we could do targeted recruitment in relation to people with disability. The nature of our recommendations is that they are just recommendations, and I think that is the sad part about it. We have, however, identified that probably one of the issues we needed to deal with is the amendment of Civilian Secretariat Act, so that we could make recommendations have some form of a binding effect. But I must mention, Chair, that the relationship between the South African Police Service and the Civilian Secretariat has improved drastically, to such a point that we have now developed a body of recommendations we've been making for over the past 3 years. And that recommendations are implemented through the forum which we have established between ourselves and the South African Police Service. And we are leading that committee. It sits on quarterly basis to monitor. And very significant now, the recommendations through the directive of the National Commissioner have now been cascaded up to a district commissioner's level in terms of the implementation of the recommendations. So that relationship have now improved, and we are looking at that. We will want to enhance this forum to include IPID, because part of the recommendations are from IPID, and IPID does not sit in that forum. And by direction of the minister, the current minister, we've been instructed to include IPID so that they are also part of that forum, which sit quarterly. We sit quarterly in the consultative forum with IPID separately, without SAPS as well. So we want to include that. It becomes a complete implementation, a complete forum within the ministry for the implementation of those recommendations. And the reason why we think we must tamper with the Civilian Secretariat Act is that this relationship must not be dependent on who is the secretary and who is the National Commissioner at the time. It must be a structured relationship which finds effect in the legislation because of the binding. And that will also improve in terms of what the minister will then, if the minister have accepted those recommendations and the minister says these are the recommendations which must be implemented, it will give the South African Police Service no choice but to implement or to provide reasons why implementation should not happen. And we think it will then enhance the relationship which will exist. The President, through the MTDP, has elevated the implementation of the Integrated Crime and Violence Prevention Strategy as part of the pillar in the MTDP itself, and has given that responsibility in the cluster, JCPS cluster, to Civilian Secretariat to implement coordination of the implementation of the ICVPS. It's quite a mammoth task because you need the entire government to be part and parcel of that particular task. I must mention at this point, we really have struggles in relation of getting other departments to come to the party. We have established the National Working Committee, which involves other departments in that National Working Committee, but we still have other departments that are not a part and parcel. And this has become a standing item both at JCPS, FOSAD, and ultimately Cabinet, so that we could report. And those departments that are not forming part, they will be part of the report that we are giving even tomorrow to JCPS. Yes, those that there was one employee who did not sign a performance agreement, and that employee has been disciplined, given the final written warning, So that matter is being taken care of. The 1.1 million, yes, there are two matters which are with the DPCI judge. With the DPCI, one is the matter of the judge, but the second one is about 2 million which was spent in some rig dance procurement that happened in 2017 and so forth. And we've just taken a decision that we need to start processes of recovering that money. And we have then said the DPCI must tell us whether they are prosecuting, but we are also have instructed Advocate Kritzinger can speak on that. She's here to say that we need to see whether is it still a recoverable amount, because it's a matter that happened in 2017, so you might have prescription matters kicking in terms of pursuing that due to lapse of time. But we think prosecution, if necessary, the DPCI must proceed with that. And Honorable Skosana, you are correct. Definitely, we are underfunded, and you could see that even when we're supposed to fill certain vacancies on time and so forth, we try and delay that so that we could generate some savings and do certain things. And one issue we want to fund is the automation of complaints management system, and that's very important. We have had a discussion even with the chair of the portfolio committee in relation to how do we manage complaints that are now bombarding even members of this house, in terms of how do we then process that complaints, because we deal with service delivery complaint. So we must move away even from our own manual way of doing things and automate this so that there could be proper management of complaints that we receive, especially because IPID, at a great extent, they start phasing out common assault complaints and other things that they needed to deal with, and they will then be channeled to ourselves. We have footprint in all provinces, and that's correct. But the problem is that the provinces are not the same. And there is quite a huge neglect of civilian secretariat in provinces in particular. We have established our national forum, which we are sitting with all provinces, and we're trying to standardize in even the structures in various provinces and the budgets that must exist in various provinces, because we feel that better utilization of provincial secretariat will make us have a greater impact if we collaborate and work well with provinces. That includes even the establishment of the communication forum. We have established the communication forum, and it's having its second sitting to try and we are looking at the communication plan for the next 5 years, and which will include all other provinces as well. I've spoken to the issues around the recommendations. I'll ask Ramaru to speak on issues that Honorable James have raised. The issues around education, I think they are noted. I think we should be able to invest more on education. But to state that wherever there is a ministerial imbizo, we are definitely there, and the current ministers have made sure that civilian secretariat are in the forefront of all the ministerial imbizo. We are even present in all platforms of social media currently, which is something that has not been there before. And even myself, I roam around the country trying to ensure that the work of civilian secretariat take place. We participate in the review of the Criminal Procedure Act. Although it's a legislation that sits with the Department of Justice, but we are part of it. And amongst the bigger issues that are for review is the whole regime of bail. And I think it's a matter which I think has bothered the cluster for quite some time, and we're looking at that. So that work is at an advanced stage. And I think the Department of Justice will brief those responsible or those that should be briefed on that in terms of the progress. I must admit, Chair, in terms of our targets, numbers, and so forth, that's one matter that worries or that had worried me as well. And I've said we may be under planning in relation to community MBs, because when we look at what we have in our APP vis-a-vis the actual MBs that have been conducted, they don't tally. For instance, in the past financial year, there are 22 MBs that we have had in the last financial year. But when we come to our APP and there's that under planning. I think those are the few issues that I've raised. I've asked Mr. Amaro to speak to our CFO as well as Advocate Finger and to comment if there's any. Mr. Amaro.
Thanks, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Members, Minister, Deputy Minister, and colleagues. Maybe to deal with issues that Honorable James have raised in terms of the police oversight initiatives, maybe I need to indicate that the work that we do in Program 4 is project-based. So if I use that example of the first one, police oversight initiatives, we had two projects that we focused on in the past financial year. The first one was custody management, where we were looking at how, what do we call them, is it the cells and sub-cells are managed throughout the country. So that was the first project that we did. So as much as the target is 2, so that 2 stands for 2 projects. The first project was custody management. The second project was docket analysis. So if I zoom into the custody management, so we visited 374 police stations where we were assessing what is really happening in those police stations. And in terms of docket analysis, we visited 10 police stations where we assessed 163 dockets. So the focus in terms of docket analysis was on dockets that have been closed or withdrawn, either as unfounded or just withdrawn. And we were looking at the murder cases, we were looking at GBV-related cases. So where we do this analysis. So when we report, we will have one comprehensive report, but that report will be covering all the police stations that we have visited. So in terms of the tools that we use, as I've indicated, it's project-based, so we will develop even questionnaires that we will use to collect data. And in instances where we work with provinces, we will even call provinces where we train them now in terms of implementation of those questionnaires. And we will still, as the national office, go to different provinces. So as the Secretary has indicated, provinces have got different capacities. So in some provinces, you find that we do maybe even more than half of what will have been sampled, because we will do as a sample. But every 5 years, we cover all the police stations in terms of a census. So that is what is happening. If I give another example in terms of the DVA, as an example, where we talk about assessments on implementation of DVA. So we are required by law to report in Parliament twice in a year in terms of DVA. So what we do is, in the first semester, we will visit a certain number of police stations and generate one comprehensive report. In the past financial year, for the first semester report, we had visited 243 police stations. And in the second semester, we had visited 397. So all in all, we visited 640 police stations just for DVA. So it means for each and every project, so there will be a number of police stations that we visit, which is information that we're able to even put in a table and maybe indicate to Parliament that this is how we visited the police station. If I give another example where we talk about assessments on implementation of legislation and policies for SAPS. in this past financial year or the year under review, we were looking at the DNA Act, how is it being implemented, and the second project, we were looking at the detective policy to check the effectiveness of the policy. So we will visit so many police stations, but have one report for that project. So I think that's what I can indicate. In terms of the cost, Program 4, I won't have the exact amount, but for goods and services for Program 4, which is where we do all this work, I think it was plus minus 5 million rands, the goods and services, which is what we use to do all these projects. And that limits the scope in terms of the number of police stations that we can visit, because when we visit, it's across the country. So it means we need to be traveling, we need to be training even provinces, and that 5 million supports all this work that we do. Thanks.
Yes, CFO. Thank you. Advocate Kritzel.
Thanks, DG. Afternoon, Chairperson, Honourable Members, Minister, Deputy Minister, Acting Head of IPID and General and other colleagues. Yes, just to supplement what the Director General had said is our role in this would be to obtain all relevant documentation in relation to the recovery, in relation to the case that was mentioned, to ensure that an adequate record and evidence is available to be able to take a final decision by the relevant authority whether we're going to recover the money or not. And then also is obviously to assess the matter in terms of prescription law to see whether all the elements of the prescription law can be applied in this matter. And then we also need to liaise with the Office of the State Attorney and Counsel in this matter going forward. That's my input, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chair. I think we would have covered most of the questions. If there's one outstanding, we can deal with.
Sure.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Honourable Schikkerling, you raised your hand again.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to say that it's kind of refreshing that somebody comes to sit in front of you as a department and you can hear that you're all incredibly capable and professional. So from my side, thank you very much, because I think if you impart some of your knowledge into the other departments, you could maybe assist them a bit more, but really it is refreshing. I just want to know that I asked a question about, does SAPS implement the IPID recommendations? And I know you said it's only recommendations, but when you do your oversight, do you find that they actually do implement these recommendations, or are they lacking in the implementation? Thank you.
Thanks. They do. They do. But the biggest challenge that we have observed, and I think IPID will talk much about that, is in terms of now the sanctions. Because more often than not, we've realized that the sanction doesn't necessarily match with the wrong that was done. So I think if we can improve in that area, that's where we can see better results. Thanks.
Honourable Jane.
I think I just want to say thank you for explaining. I think the manner in which you had your numbers on the presentation wasn't clear. You must remember South Africans are looking at these presentations. And when we see two without you explaining those are two projects, not two oversight, it doesn't make sense and it doesn't add up with the budget. So when you took the time to clarify, it kind of, I could start seeing, okay, this is why there's 150 million. But just looking at that presentation the way it was, it was a bit worrying. But thank you so much for the clarity. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Chairperson. I just want to make some observations. When Member James asked her questions, I thought I needed a different kind of response, but I do think that the issues have been substantially clarified. But since I think we are having to look forward about the role of the Civilian Secretariat, I do want to explain that taking up with what Member Kusana was pointing to. The reason that a civilian oversight model was adopted 30 years ago was that we had a model of policing, apart from the apartheid problem, but it was a model of policing which was very much linked with the old order and with a certain understanding of policing and the role of police in a society and a democracy and so forth. And the feeling was that you're going to need a civilian oversight body to ensure that SAPS underwent a transition from a highly militarized police force to a service that served the public, that was consistent with democratic values, and so that was the thinking. And as he indicated, there were certain dynamics in our society, suspicion about the role of the police, racial divisions, and so forth, not all of which have been overcome. So the idea was we need a new model of policing. Now the question, 30 years later, before the Portfolios Committee, is what's your role? And my take on it is that there was a problem with the way we thought about civilian oversight, and maybe it's not the same model that we have in mind now, because we're 30 years in a democracy, and maybe we can think about the relationship of the society to the police in a different way. Which is not to say that the problems that we were trying to deal with were only problems in the past. I think police services can have this problem, and sometimes there are legitimate questions about the role of force in our society, including force exercised by the police. Then I think we threw the baby out of the bathwater and said, I think the police ministers were uncomfortable with a model which said, we're going to watch, we're going to monitor you, we're the watchdog, we're going to watch what the police are doing. And what that did is it placed the minister in an adversarial relationship with the department. And ministers were not comfortable with that. Then they threw the baby out of the bathwater, and what did we get? Maybe that's why we got the blurring of roles. Police ministers, with all due respect to my colleagues, confusing the role of the minister and the national commissioner maybe. So now you have a minister who's a police officer, in effect. That model has also gotten us where we are. So I think that going forward, we need to think about the role of this body. And its role is not apart from the ministry. They're not supposed to be on social media. I don't think their role is to advertise their existence. Their role, I think, is to support the ministry in providing guidance to the police and exercising oversight of the police. Those capabilities, you're quite right, they do have. So I think we need to rethink what they're supposed to be doing. And that means a different relationship with the ministry. So I see them as a resource that will strengthen the ministry's ability to provide in a way that's appropriate to the exercise of executive authority, policy direction. And perhaps if we're monitoring, then we can say to the police after, but are you achieving the objectives we set and so forth? the role that they've played on community policing, I think members are absolutely right. 30 years later, that model has to be re-examined. It worked very well, this community policing forums, the community safety forums, and so forth. But somehow we've lost direction, and I think that we need to put effort back into rethinking how community policing should work today, because I think that the police have also lost perhaps confidence or in that model, which is because it wasn't working. So there's no community policing really going on anymore. It's not part of our thinking about fighting crime. And I think that should change again. We need to make that a pillar of any new strategy that emerges. The role that the Civilian Secretariat is playing in developing and implementing this ICVPS, it's the Integrated Crime and Prevention Strategy. They've played a critical role, so they have the capabilities. Now, what is that strategy? And here I want to request the committee to also rethink the oversight model, because you've all said that policing alone is not the answer. Now this is a whole government approach to crime prevention. But the other departments are not on board, and I think it's a challenge because departments are set up in silos, so are the portfolio committees. So the question, how we ensure that this strategy, from an oversight point of view, how does Parliament ensure that this strategy, all the departments are held account for implementing this strategy? And if you exercise oversight in that way, then the departments will respond. At the moment, they're incentivized to continue to act independently, and that's why this strategy is not working. But my point is, the Civilian Secretariat developed this strategy. Oversight, I asked the Deputy Minister because I wasn't exactly sure myself. And so Member James's question was absolutely appropriate. How does oversight actually work now? Because that was the original model. It was supposed to be about oversight. And what I now understand from the response is that these oversight projects are used by the ministry in their engagement with the SAPS leadership. But there's a lot of potential there, because I don't think the Civilian Secretariat is really assessing performance on an ongoing basis against performance indicators and so forth. And they should be able to collect data, do the analysis, so that the minister, whoever that might be, is in a position to assess policing, crime prevention, and outcomes, on an ongoing basis. The issue that I suppose we'll talk to when IPID reports is an important question, so I won't deal with that matter fully, but it's this question of how the police deal with the IPID recommendations, and there is a disjuncture there. They are running parallel processes, and the disciplinary process in SAPS sometimes, they don't simply implement the IPID recommendations. That's the problem. Final point is about the regulation of the private security industry. Now, the committee took a decision not to hear SIRA today. I understand your decision, and I respect your decision, but the issue that Member Skosana is raising does worry me about the exponential growth of the private security industry. To some extent, it has grown because of weaknesses in the public policing. So they're filling the gap because it's a market response to, and we've seen this in a number of fields. And now, as you say, I think there are more numbers in the private sector, more warm bodies and more guns. But at the moment, in the situation that we now have, I think we'll get better outcomes if we have cooperative relationships as much as possible with private companies, but we have to we have to deal with the issues of regulation that you are raising because I think the imbalance is also unhealthy. Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Minister. I think it's a major mind shift in terms of Secretariat that's very refreshing to hear. So thank you for your input on that. I'm going to then hand over to the team from IPID, and I want to with that thank the team from the Secretariat. And you're also more than welcome to stay. You can follow the example of General Musikiri if you like. Her enthusiasm is contagious. So, but then we can hand over to the team from IPID for our final presentation of the day. Fantastic. So I'm going to hand over. Minister DM, would you like to say something before IPID? Sorry, I'm interrupting you. Would you like to say something before IPID kicks off?
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to hand straight over to the IPID team then, and then we will engage in questions afterwards. Okay. Go for it.
No, thank you, Honorable Chair, committee members, Minister, DM, DG, General Musiki, as well as colleagues. Chairperson, our presentation will be in two compartments. That is financial report as well as performance report for the year under review. Before I hand over to the CFO, Mr. Patrick Sitsedi, who will deal with financial reporting, and Meli Tlape, who will deal with performance, I just want to highlight key consideration for the year under review. And they sum up the entire presentation in terms of how we are progressing in maximizing value on the resources at our disposal. And such talk mainly on the issue of governance in the main. And of course, there is a clear record that we have sustained clean audit. And that is for 3 years in succession. So we are dealing with issue of governance head on, and we are succeeding in that regard. There is also an issue which was topical when we were here previously, and that is whether there is an impact in our work, and we can demonstrate it through criminal convictions, which have moved from 43 to 76. And to have a highlight on that, we have 22 criminal conviction on murder, as well as 11 on rape by police officials. And there are 2 on corruption. But one also need to indicate that there are 39 matters on the roll in relation to corruption, and also 2 or 3 matters in relation to murder. And these are matters which are ready for prosecution. And also we have 106 rape matters, and that is where we are demonstrating an impact in terms of our work. There is also a question around a backlog. Yes, we have to acknowledge, it was indicated earlier on, that there is still work which need to be done. But we can also demonstrate that when you compare the year 23, 24 with 24, 25, there is an increase in completion. So as much as there is still a challenge, we are making a meaningful contribution, and we can say without any shadow of doubt that we are turning things around. It will take time, but the direction is the good one. I will hand over to the CFO, who will deal with expenditure report, and he will then hand over to Meli Tlape, who will deal with performance. Over to yourself, through you, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Bila. Good evening, Chair, honorable members, Minister, Deputy Minister. Allow me to say all protocol observed. The first slide on my presentation, Chairperson, talks to the legislative's requirements, what we have used in order to prepare the financial statements. The first one was the PFMA. Second one, Departmental Financial Reporting Framework. compliance and reporting framework, as well as the modified cash standards. These are the legislative framework which were used during the compilation of the financial statements. Next slide, Chair. We are demonstrating how the budget was allocated for the period under review. We had 4 programs, which are administration, investigation and information management, legal and investigation advisory service, as well as compliance monitoring and stakeholder management. Chair, you'll observe that from the allocation of 370 million in the financial year under review, we were able to surrender only 151,000 rand, which then clearly means all programs were able to spend 100%, except program 3, which is legal and investigation advisory services, that spent 96% of its budget allocation, mainly due to delay in filling some of the vacancies. Next slide, Chair, talks to the departmental receipts. Chair and honorable members, you will know that IPID is rendering free government services. We are not charging on services that we rendered. However, there are transactions such as disposal of our capital assets, where we disposed the old and damaged vehicles, as well as where there are debts, particularly from the staff. And those are the areas where we collect revenue from. Next slide talks to the environment. Chair, as you are also aware that we are a department that is under-resourced, so we keep on roping Peter to pay Paul. So during the course of the financial year, we'll keep on monitoring our budget so that we are able to prioritize key areas within the particularly core functions. So the following environments were implemented in line with Section 43 of the PFMA, mainly to address the possible overspending within program, particularly program 2. This environment was done within the 8% threshold as required by the PFMA. Next slide is the summary of the revenue rollover. Chair, for the period under review, we did not apply any revenue, as our budget was spent 100%. In terms of unauthorized expenditure, Chair, for the same period under review, we did not incur any unauthorized expenditure. However, Chair, I need to indicate to the House that there is an amount of about 400,000 that has been sitting in our books, the expenditure that was incurred in the 2 financial year, 25-26, as well as 28-29. We appeared before SCOPA to present the case and ask for authorization of that transaction. And National Treasury is currently following it up with the SCOPA so that we can clear this balance from our books. In terms of the irregular expenditure, Chair, there was an amount of 17,000 rand that was identified during the audit, mainly due to non-compliance with the provincial procurement regulations. And the action is currently in progress to see what happened and how do we improve control deficiencies. In terms of the fruitless and wasteful expenditure, Chair, we managed our register and we made sure that whenever there is any amount of fruitless, is incurred from the officials implicated. The next one, Chair, is accruals. This is one of the areas that we battled before. However, there has since been a significant improvement. We are able to reduce our accruals. For the period under review, we reduced them from 6.9 million to 4.8 million. And I must indicate to Chair and honorable members that
accruals is not something that you can avoid entirely, as there are those services that are rendered in March and you only receive the invoice in the following month, which is April. In terms of the commitments, we did not have high amount transactions of commitment. It was only 144,000, mainly for the furniture that was not delivered by the end of the financial year, and as a result 141,000 was committed. The next slide talks to the contingent liability. Chair, this is where we are having a serious challenge. We try by all means to clear our contingent liability, but as and when we clear, there are new cases as a result of allegation of wrongful arrest, which keeps on coming. For the financial year under review, we were able to take out about 37 million of cases due to the prescription period or cases that were inactive. However, there were 7 new cases that were registered in the same financial year, amounting to 25 million. So this is one of the areas that is giving us sleepless nights, but we have since adopted the Solicitor General policies so that we see how do we deal with this balance. Chair, this slide demonstrates our journey of clean audit. From 2021, we had unqualified audit with 4 matters of emphasis. In 21-22, we put systems in place and we were able to reduce the matters of emphasis from 4 to 2. And in 2022 to 23 and to date, we were able to get a clean audit. This is where we are. Our job, Chair, is to sustain this opinion and nothing else. That should be the last slide. I will hand over to my colleague. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good evening to you, honorable members, Minister, Deputy Minister, Acting ED, and the colleagues. From my slides, Chair, I will start with the performance on the implementation of our strategic plan, considering that the 24-25 financial year was the last financial year of the 5-year term. And we had a total of 9 5-year targets, and out of those, 8 were achieved. I will just run through them, Chair. In the interest of time, I will try to summarize all my slides because there is a lot of information. The first one I will not touch on. The CFO has already touched on the audit outcome. And the second one, it's the one that was not achieved, which is the percentage increase in vacancies filled within 6 months. Our target was to fill our positions within 90 days, and we only managed to achieve 40%. And this was due to the challenges that we encountered during the COVID-19 pandemic, due to the restrictions that were put in place, and subsequent to that, also the introduction of the DPSA directive on the management of filling of the vacancies in the 23-24 financial year. They had an impact in the turnaround time of filling the vacant positions within the period of 6 months. On the next slide, these are also some of the indicators, outcome indicators that were achieved. And we have observed, Chair, an increase in all, yes, I think all our targets. We have also noted that for the indicators where they've got to do with the core, which is our investigations, the increase in number of criminal cases decided by the NPA. We had set our target at 2,500, and these targets that we set were based on the baseline that was there when we set our targets. So, but based on the interventions that were implemented, the stakeholder engagements, and also the controls that were implemented during this 5-year term, we managed to even exceed the targets that were set. Also for increase in number of disciplinary recommendations initiated, increase in number of disciplinary recommendations that are finalized, there was also an increase. And the last one under the core is percentage increase of cases prosecuted by the NPA. We've also realized an increase from 7% to 10%. And the next two indicators were under the legal service program. The first one is the percentage reduction of legal claims against the department. The CFO has already touched on this. Here we were measuring the opening balance that was in our books by the first year of this 5-year term, which is 2020-21 financial year. And by the end of 24-25, this is what we managed to decrease, which is 53%. And the next one is legal advices resulting in resolved investigation challenges. We managed to achieve 95%. And the last one is the percentage implementation of communications and stakeholder management strategy. And we implemented 69% against the target of 60. And in terms of the implementation of the APP, we have improved our performance when we compare 23-24 and the period under review, starting with Program 1. There was an increase from 50% to 67%. And for Program 2, unfortunately, there was a decline from 100 to 92%, with 93%, with only one target that was not achieved. And for Program 3, we remain at 100%. And the last Program 4, our performance also improved from 80% to 100%. And the overall performance of the department improved from 82% to 88%. In terms of the specific indicators per program, I will not dwell much into the details. In terms of Program 1, out of the 12 targets, we achieved 8, which it's 67% of the targets. And the first indicator that was not achieved, it's the implementation of ICT plan. We had planned to implement 80%, but we only managed to implement 60% of our planned activities. And this was affected mainly by the delays in the implementation of 2 major projects, which is Wide Area Network, which it's about the upgrade of our data lines, and also the telephone system projects. And this was because we wanted to test the market and not only continue with the existing service provider. And we have since done that, and in the current financial year, these projects, they are almost complete. I think we could be at 99% based on what we have verified by the end of the second quarter. And the rest of the indicators, they were achieved under Program 1 on this slide, which I will not dwell much. I will only focus on the areas where we have not achieved. The next indicator where we have not achieved our targets, it's representation of women at senior management service. We only managed to achieve 44% against the target of 50%. And I will also touch on the target for representation of persons living with disability, because both the indicators, they are dependent on the recruitment process. And we have tried to attract women and also persons living with disability throughout the financial year. But unfortunately, we could not identify suitable and competent candidates to fill the positions that were vacant and filled during the period under review. And the last indicator that was not achieved, Chair, it's on the reduction of fruitless and wasteful expenditure balance. These 2 indicators on the reduction of unwanted expenditure that were introduced in the period under review, and only one of them was not achieved. And this is because some of the matters, they were still undergoing the determination tests and they were not concluded by the end of the reporting period. And when we moved to Program 2, as I've indicated, Chair, there was only one target that was not met. The target for backlog, it was exceeded. In fact, most of the indicators under Program 2, the targets were exceeded. Death in police custody, it was exceeded. I think AG, they have presented on this, so I will not dwell much on the figures, Chair. The one that was not achieved, which is rape while in police custody, we have only registered 2 cases during the period under review, and only one was completed within the set time frame of 90 days. And the other case, by the end of the reporting period, we were still continuing with the investigations, and as a result, we could not complete it within the set time frame. But by the end of the reporting period, the 90 days had already lapsed. I will not also go through this. I will move on to the stats related to Program 2. On this slide, Chair, these are the cases that were registered in the period under review, comparing case classification with the 2023-24 financial year. We have realized that there was an increase in terms of the overall number of cases that were registered. Where there is a red on the last column, it means there was an increase, and where there's a green, it means there was a decline. So what we are aiming to achieve as the department is to see a reduction across all the case classifications, and we are appreciative of the fact that there is a decline that was realized in 4 of the case classifications, which is death in police custody, rape by police officer, rape in police custody, and also non-compliance with Section 29 of the IPID Act, because there are station lectures that we are conducting across all the 9 provinces to create awareness to SAPS officials on the reporting obligations in line with the IPID Act. So in terms of what we are presenting here, there was an increase on death as a result of police action by 12%, complaint of a discharge of official firearm by 20%, torture by 6%, assault 5%, corruption 1%. There was only one, in terms of the numbers, the increase was just one additional case. And also for Section 28(1)H, there is a significant increase of 28%, and this can be attributed to the fact that we are also registering cases of domestic violence, because some of these victims, they are not comfortable to have these cases being investigated by the police officer, so there is an increase in that case classification. On the next slide, this is just a summary of our active cases and that we were supposed to investigate within this period under review, which is 19,790. That is the total. It's both intake cases, cases that were registered, and backlog cases that were carried over to the 24-25 financial year. And out of those, we only managed to complete 5,310. This is both backlog and intake, new cases that were registered in the period under review. And what we also want to inform the committee is that out of this 5,310, over 70%, I think it's 72%, it's backlog cases. So there was more emphasis on completing backlog cases. On departmental and criminal convictions, already the acting ED has touched on this, and also the cases on the court roll, the overall is 1,078 cases. There were also acquittals on departmental matters of 152, on the criminal it was 40. We have also included a slide that reflects on the increase which the acting ED has already touched on. I will skip it. On the next slide is just the breakdown on the cases that were investigated and completed per province and also per classification, which I will not dwell much into. On the next slide, Chair, these are the cases, recommendations that were referred to SAPS and the MPS during the period under review. And for the MPS, we had a total of 26 positive recommendations and negative recommendations were 25. And for SAPS, we had a total of 1,369 positive recommendations and negative recommendations were 796. And going to the next slide, Chair, there was an omission on the presentation that we submitted. I have noted that the row for total for the MPS, it was omitted. So the numbers or the row that has got red font, that is the information that was omitted, the total for the MPS. So for MPS, by the end of the reporting period, we had a total of 17 matters where we were still awaiting for initiation of our recommendations, and 6 disciplinary actions were initiated. And on the matters that were finalized, there is one where a member was found guilty and one where a member, where the recommendations was that they are not going to take any disciplinary steps. And when we move down to the SAPS recommendations, we had 33 pending initiations. And on the matters that were initiated, we have 357. And on the outcomes, on matters that the decision was that members were found guilty is 198, not guilty is 53, no steps taken is 141, and matters withdrawn is 14. And what I also want to inform the committee is that on the matters for both MPS and SAPS, where we were still awaiting initiation by the end of the reporting period, by the end of the second quarter of the current financial year, the numbers had reduced to 8 for both entities. And this is also the breakdown, Chair, of the departmental convictions per case classification.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. If we can go back one slide, I just want to ask a question for clarity that we don't have to come back later.
Yeah.
There, for example, in the Western Cape, okay, where it says there are 48 guilty verdicts, okay, but it says 42 no steps taken. Does that mean out of 48 where there was guilt, 42 of them didn't see any steps taken out of the 48?
No, Chair.
Not?
Not. On 48, it's guilty, there are sanctions. And
Okay.
on the 42, no steps were taken.
But were they sanctioned?
No.
The 42?
No.
So,
I think it could be on matters where SAPS they could have conducted investigation. I think if I remember well, I think the minister also touched on it, that when it comes to the implementation of IPID recommendations, there are instances where SAPS they will not implement, but conduct investigations, and based on their findings, they will have their own conclusion.
okay.
Yes.
Okay, we'll come back at the discussion. Thank you. But let's come back in the discussion because I think we all noticed that.
Yes.
I could hear everyone here. Okay, we'll come back. Sorry for the interruption. Please continue.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yes, on slide 29, this is the breakdown of the 313 departmental convictions per case classification and per province. And in terms of the case classification, for assault is 153, which is the highest. And we also have Section 281H with 34. And discharge of an official firearm is 31, and also death as a result of police action. And for death in police custody, we have 13. For rape by police officer, we have 21, and for torture is 10. And also on the non-compliance with the IPID Act, it's 11. This is the status on the criminal referrals that were referred during the period under review. The total is 1,980. And by the end of the reporting period, we are still awaiting feedback on 1,113. And on 790, they declined to prosecute. And mediation, there was nothing. And they decided to prosecute 71 matters. And we have 6 matters that were withdrawn. And we have also included some of the reasons that NPA would have cited as the reason why they have decided not to prosecute. On criminal convictions, this is the breakdown per case classification. The acting ED has already touched on this, Chair. And also, this is just the details on the convictions that were secured on the criminal matters, particularly on rape. We have noted a life imprisonment on a number of cases, and also there is a matter under the Free State where a member was sentenced to 12 years imprisonment and declared unfit to possess a firearm. And the other one, it's still in Free State, was sentenced to 5 years direct imprisonment. And he is to be registered in the Sex Offenders Register. And in Vryburg, it's 8 years direct imprisonment. And we have 10 years direct imprisonment under Northern Cape, Springbok, and 5 years for defeating the ends of justice, declared unfit to possess firearm, and the member will be was registered in the offenders register on the 18th of October 2024. We also have 10 years imprisonment for the Bishop Levis, and lastly, in Goodwood matter, 20 years imprisonment plus 3 years. These are the cases that were still on the court roll per case classification and also per province, the total being 1,078, assault 463, and we have death in police custody with 7, death as a result of police action 203, discharge of an official firearm 136, rape by police officer 106, then we have 2 for rape in police custody. And for torture, it's 11. Corruption is 39. Section 28(1)H is 99. Then we have systemic corruption 1. And lastly, non-compliance with the IPID Act, it's 11. We are done, Chair, with Program 2. This is the second last program. Program 3, we have achieved all our targets. Under Program 3, we only had 4. Legal advice provided to investigators within 5 working days, legal advice provided to the department within 30 working days, litigation matters referred with instructions to the state attorney, and lastly, the contracts and service level agreements that are finalized within 30 days. And this is the last slide and our last program, compliance monitoring and stakeholder management. Our targets were achieved, all of them in this program. We had 11, and the first indicator, formal engagements held with key stakeholders, we achieved 195. This is a combination of community outreach and also this meetings with our stakeholders, the standing meetings with SAPS, media programs that were held, we had 6, and station lectures, we managed to do 46. And we also have an indicator on the recommendations referred to SAPS and MPS that are analyzed. We achieved 100%, and also the criminal referrals forwarded to the NPA that are analyzed, it's 100%. And on the disciplinary outcomes from SAPS and MPS that are analyzed, we achieved 94%, and on responses from NPA that are analyzed, it's 99%. I just want to explain a bit on these 2 indicators. When we receive the outcomes from SAPS and the MPS, the provincial management, they do analyze the outcome, and where they are not in agreement based on the recommendations that were referred and also the kind of evidence that was collated, they then challenge the outcome. There are processes of review where they will request even the recordings from SAPS. So there are instances where there have been follow-ups from the SAPS on the outcomes that were received by the department. The same with the NPA, where provincial management, they are not in agreement. They do follow up, particularly where there are no reasons cited by the NPA. And for percentage of NPA decisions on IPID referrals taken on review, okay, this is the indicator that was measuring the review. So we had 14 matters that were referred, and the turnaround time that we had set for ourselves is 60 days, meaning that when a provincial head receives the outcome and they are not in agreement, they have 60 days turnaround time to engage with the relevant stakeholder. If it's NPA or SAPS, they will engage with the relevant entity, but that should be done within 60 days to challenge the outcome that was received. And the last two indicators, it's implementation of access and awareness rural strategy. We managed to implement 75%. This was aimed at increasing our accessibility to communities and to create awareness on IPID's services, because we are aware that there are still most people, particularly in the rural areas, that are not aware of the existence of IPID and also our service offerings. And lastly is the number of research papers compiled per year, and we have met the target. That was the last slide, Chairperson. Thank you. I will hand over to the acting media.
There we go. Anything else that you would like to? Can we hand over to the members? Honorable Skosana, I think do you want to take a break?
No, I mean, so.
Okay. Okay. I've noted the Honorable Ghana, Honorable Schikkerling, Honorable James, Honorable Skosana, Honorable Ghana.
Thanks, Chair. I will not dwell on the financial aspect of things. 17,000 is money, but I think in the greater scheme of things, we understand. So let me not go there. My input starts on slide 23. And I think, Minister, this is where we deal, and it might be the issue also around both the classification. So if I see, so for instance, torture and assault, someone who's assaulted, when they report, they might report it as torture, or vice versa. Someone is tortured but report it as assault. And just to try to understand in terms of how do you differentiate the two? And at what point do you then classify it correctly? Because if say someone is, my thing would be, torture will be what happens in an interrogation. So you're being interrogated and you're not forthcoming with information. And whatever is being administered, as the DM is laughing, then to try to extract the truth, they use different methods. And I think a clarity on that, insofar as that's concerned. But these numbers are very disturbing. They are quite high. The numbers themselves on slide 23. Just on the point that you are raising, Chair, I get triggered with numbers. So when there's a number that seems like, all right, seems to be misplaced, and then I just try to think, all right, what could it be? And I start adding, and then I go back. Actually, if you look slide 27 and slide 28, Chair, where we were asking, slide 28 is an expansion of slide 27. So the 151 that you see on slide 28 for the Western Cape starts in slide 27. So it's the same number. So it tells you there on slide 27 that the Western Cape had 128 positive recommendations. I presume, according to IPID, positive recommendation is that you did not find the officer guilty. Negative, you found them guilty. So there were 151 from your processes guilty findings. And then when you then go in, you start classifying to say, out of this is the stages where each one was. That's I tried to find that to make sense of the numbers. But I think, and if you can try to get into the correctly so on slide 28, where no steps have been taken. And that's where we need to then get to with SAPS as well. It's, I know General is here, but she's alone. Because if you want to, Minister and DM, if you want to deal with it in its entirety, this particular part of the presentation, SAPS ought to answer. The general responsible for HR should be in the room, because it's not IPID has done their investigation, they've finalized their part, they've given to SAPS, and then SAPS decides not to do anything with it. And we should be asking SAPS, why do we have 141 cases? These are finalized, these are not under investigation, they are finalized, they are with you. Why are you not acting on them? And maybe it was a mistake on our part, Chair, and we ought to correct it next meeting. That when IPID is presenting, the leadership of SAPS needs to be in the room so that they can answer to this. Because otherwise, these questions IPID cannot answer when they finalize the case on one side, then they've given the recommendation to SAPS. But the person who's supposed to respond from SAPS, they've just landed in Johannesburg or wherever the plane is landing. So these are the things that we then need to deal with. But also, on discipline, I think the matters that goes to the NPA, and we appreciate that there are matters that goes to the NPA, the criminals in blue and end up being sentenced. You know, like they change the uniform from blue to orange, and in my lifetime, they will get a lime green uniform for this kind of behavior, not orange. They will get different color, lime green, together with corruption, lime green, different, so that they've betrayed the trust that the people placed on them. Because that's what corruption is. You are betraying the trust that the people have placed on you. So if you're a criminal in blue, you have betrayed that trust. So other than that, I think next time, Chair, as a request, when we deal with IPID, the leadership of the police must be in the room. Because we can't deal with them separately. They have to be in the room so that they can answer. This slides from slide 23, Chair, all the way, I think, up to slide 33. They require the SAPS leadership to be in the room so that they can answer to all this. Because this is not an IPID problem, it's a SAPS problem. And it might very well be that the civilian as well be able to give in terms of this. Because the three, as I said, they are together and they ought to be together. It's an oversight on our part, Chair. We take it, but the minister, the good thing, the minister is here and the general is here. She might very well want to give a reflection on some of the IPID recommendations. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Garner. I think it's a good point, and it's certainly something that we can do in future. Honourable Schikkerling.
Thank you, Chair. Sham, I think when I speak, then Dr. Bila already gets nervous. No, Chair, I don't have a lot to say. I just I think that there's definitely been, I just want to acknowledge, firstly, that there has been an increase in the investigations and finalization of cases. So well done to you for that, because that I can definitely see. I think it's important that that happens. What is a concern to me, though, is that you're doing all this work and you're coming with sanctions and recommendations, and then when it goes to the SAPS, then they change the sanction, or the sanction that you recommend, they don't stick to. So to me, I almost want to say, what's the point of doing the work then if they're not going to take heed to the recommendations that you're making? So I think it's important for us to have a discussion with the SAPS, like Honourable Ghana said, and if you make a recommendation, it should either be that or something, a stronger recommendation. I don't think they should take a recommendation that you make and then just decide, well, no, actually they're not going to go with it. And that goes for the same with the NPA. Because I would like to know what explains the 3.5% prosecution rate for IPID cases that are sent to the NPA. It's incredibly low. I think that the Minister should engage with the NPA to address this crisis of accountability and find out what the issue is there, so that we can make sure that we can get a higher rate of cases, prosecutions. I've noticed that IPID has quite a high resignation rate in your staff component, and that you've got 7 employees that are on precautionary leave at the moment of a cost of 8 million. It's very high. What is the statuses of these people, and you know, when are you going to finalize that? And then I've noticed with Dr. Bila was appointed middle of August, I think on the 13th of August, on a 30-day acting period, which now is expired. And I'd just like to know if this acting term has been extended and for how long, because I do think that there's a little bit of stability that has come in since Dr. Bila has been there. It seems to me like things are being a bit fast-tracked at the moment, so I'm quite happy about that. The backlog stays high, and I understand that new cases come in, but you know, what can you do, or how can there be assistance given to you through the SAPS to ensure that they can maybe help you with this backlog? Is there any idea of what you have of how we can just get rid of this backlog, so that we can just get you almost to a level playing field again? Because while you sit with this backlog, it's going to place unnecessary stress on you going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Schickling. Honourable James.
Thank you so much, Chair. Sure, 9 o'clock, my brain's off. I firstly want to ask, of the 19,000 active cases that you have in the system, at which point, because we know sometimes the sanction is that those members forfeit their benefits, their pension and provident benefits, especially if they have committed crimes such as rape, such as murder. At which point of your investigation do you make such recommendations, and are they upheld? Because I remember I asked this previously. We had an incident in El Dorado Park where a cop murdered one of the wardens, and I found later that this member was actually paid out his benefits, his full benefits. I want to ask why that happened. That is the case where I think it was Mandla Buthelezi was involved. Did you make a recommendation to SAPS with that specific case, that this member will forfeit his benefits? Then also I want to ask the Nathaniel Julius case, 2020 case, we're now in 2025. How far is that matter? Has it been finalized? What is the status? I also want to ask, decline to prosecute. You mentioned earlier on some of these cases, you receive it back as decline to prosecute. Do you sort of have a window period to re-look at those cases to get it back on the court roll? Because we cannot just accept decline to prosecute. What is the actual challenge there that the NPA refuses to place these dockets? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable James. Then lastly, the Honourable Skosana.
Thank you, Chair. You know, I understand my Honorable Ghana says that we should have everyone here. Hence, earlier when I was saying that the issue of too many institutions, understanding that this one monitors this one, that one monitors that one. And I hear that the minister might perhaps see the NPA. You'll be told that the NPA is independent. You know, and there's cases quite amazing that in Limpopo, Limpopo you only have 19, and in terms of population, it's I think it's seven times bigger than the Northern Cape, or four times or so, yeah. But the numbers are very low. I'm not sure whether you don't have enough staff there, or the policemen there, they handle themselves very well, you know. But Doc, the issue here is that people are reporting cases, and they are not happy. That I can tell you now. They are not happy with the NPA as well, because even the police are not happy with the NPA. You know, they do their job. Sometimes they drop the ball. They give it to NPA, refuse to prosecute. They say there's no case here. I'm not sure whether the minister is aware of false skeleton docket. General, I'm not sure you're aware of that. False skeleton dockets. But because we are working in that environment, I think it's like in the public service. We have ghost workers. Now, some men in blue and women, they are protecting criminals. They steal the docket, the original docket, and bring a false skeleton docket. I have a case here. I hope you take notes of it. 40/4/2000 and 41/4/2000, 54/1/2000, and 9409/2009. There was a case, I'm not sure whether because unfortunately the minister, POPCRU, is no longer here. There was an issue at Pilansberg Platinum Mine that the minister addressed people there, and there was an issue of jurisdiction, you know, on our traditional areas. If you remember, maybe some of you remember that. And some people were shot there, you know, young, you know, with your rubber bullets. But some of them, you know, we are not the same. You know, some people get injured. But it was not right for the government to come into an area without consultation. Because obviously you're going to have, in that area there were issues, you know. Now, people were injured. And some will fabricate, because some will find that, you know, she or he was sick, he dies. Then they say the government must take responsibility. So my parting shot on this one, can you please look at this matter, where the docket was a skeleton docket, and remember some of the issues, some were sentenced, some matters goes back when the minister was Steve Schwete. Some people were sentenced wrongly so. But you know, it's a, you know, the law is a game of opinions. The judge will say, or the magistrate will say, in my opinion, I think you are guilty. But because of what is presented to him, false docket, to NPA, it ends up you being in jail. But I'm just pleading, Chair, that on this matter, perhaps when you come back, can you please look at this matter? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honourable Sosana. And handing back over Dr. Bia to you for the response.
Thank you, Chair. I will start with the last one from Honorable Skosan in relation to why Limpopo is having low rate of intake. Inherently, Limpopo, when you look into the entire statistic of SAPS, which represent the statistic of the country, it is also low. So, general, the culture there, as much as it could be because it is a semi-homogeneous area wherein vendors live as vendors there, tsongas, and it does has an impact on the intake of cases. So that could be one kind of a reason. We will follow up on the cases you have highlighted, and then we'll get case numbers and also the stations where they reside, so that at least we are able to follow up on that regard. Honorable James, the issue of Butelis is in two compartments, as we have been engaging with yourself previously. The first one was witness protection aspect. As you remember, we have, after he was granted a bail, rearrested him. So we take you serious when we talk here. We implement your recommendations. Immediately he interfered with witnesses. We rearrested Sergeant Butelis. On the question of whether we have communicated with the police, you raised this issue very sharply here, Honorable James. And immediately during the meeting, I left the meeting, then drove to the National Commissioner's office, handing over. I drafted that, yes, we might have delayed in terms of timing, but we took you very serious. We have got record. I had to leave the meeting, then quickly draft the letter and handed it over. So that has been done, and then the issue around Natalia, acting National Head of Investigation, will talk to it, decline to prosecute. What are the prevalent reasons which lead to decline to prosecute? Kindly talk to that. And then there is a question around Honorable Ghana, the difference between torture and assault, GBH, I suppose. Mr. Ramafu, our head of legal, will talk to it, and I will also request that he touch base on where we are moving in terms of the new regulation, with specific reference to assault common as well as discharge of firearm, because that part also talk to our strategic repositioning. We will no longer be taking minor cases. We will be taking high impact cases, and it emanates from the review of regulation. So the head of legal will talk to such. There is a question which was asked by both Honorable Ghana and Honorable Shekling in relation to no step being taken by the SAPS. I will respond it from strategic view. At operational level, of course, the National Commissioner was going to respond. The Minister has directed accounting officers of IPID, Civilian Secretary, and the National Commissioner to have a combined meeting to address specifically this issue. This directive was issued by our minister on the 11th of August, And the DG has touched based on that. So that is going to happen. But at operational level, as to what happened previously, I think the National Commissioner is relevant. But going forward, we can be rest assured that there will be an improvement in that regard. There is also a question, Honorable Sheklin. Your question is very pertinent, talking about a backlog. But what I've requested Mr. Ramafuk to touch base on in terms of our strategic repositioning, we will no longer be taking discharge of firearm as well as assault common. And that represents 84% of our total workload. So when we come to say, based on what we have currently in the form of discharge and assault common, we project that it will take us 3 to 4 years to clear everything. And once we will have cleared everything, then that is where we are shifting toward strategic repositioning ourselves so that we'll look into high impact matters. A lot of matters are being raised at Madlanga. We are quietly and properly looking into that space. And we will deal with those matters very decisively. And also ad hoc committee. So we are in that space, and you can be rest assured that wherein we fall short in terms of capacity, we will partner with a reputable institution like SIU to ensure that we maximize a value, because we believe that we have a contribution to make to the society, and we will try our level best. I will hand over to Mr. Ramafuk to deal with issues.
Chair, before they respond, I just want to make a follow-up. If you just touch something here, which I've asked before, and I think IPID, I'm asking the right people, Chair, that if you have an active docket and people are moving from one unit or from a directorate, not necessarily directorate, they move from crime intelligence service, or they move from SAPS, is it allowed for them to move with active dockets to IDEC? Which has happened. I'm not talking something which is, I'm saying something which has happened now as I'm talking to you, that people have resigned, but they took along the dockets to where they are now employed. Thank you.
This is not a principal question, it's a specific question, Chairperson. The National Head of Investigation will respond if you feel comfortable about, because this is a specific question and we are aware of such. And we are also aware that IDEC will be appearing before. Yes, so I will hand over to Mr. Ramafuk and then the acting National Head of Investigation in that order. Thank you.
Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, without derogation from the salutation, I would go straight to questions asked in order to provide clarity where necessary responses. Let me begin with this one relating to whether IPID can recommend a sanction of forfeiture of benefits by Honorable James, and also the kind of sanction by Honorable Sheklin. Before I dive into the concept of torture versus assault and the alignment of our legislation in order to fulfill our constitutional mandate. IPID can only recommend disciplinary action to be taken. We do not recommend a sanction. In other words, when we send those recommendations, we say to SAPS management, please discipline this person. Here are the facts and here is evidence. But we cannot predetermine the outcome of a disciplinary hearing. That should happen at the disciplinary hearing by an independent, presumably chairperson, and the member having been afforded the opportunity to respond to the allegations, and that is what we call justice, if you like. Of course, we have been grappling with the concept of conflict of laws in terms of the hierarchy of our laws. On one hand, we have the management function of the South African Police Service and Metro Police Services, and on the other hand, the oversight role by IPID. Now, when you make those recommendations, these police services in their own space would say, but we have taken this member through a proper disciplinary process, and in some instances, the findings or the sanction does not fit the misconduct or the offense, and that is where we got the marching orders to engage so that we get the mechanism to cure this particular problem. But over and above that, we have always held a view that IPID, being an oversight body, would then have more muscle. Otherwise, it defeats the purpose of existence of IPID if management of SAPS can disregard our recommendations, or at the disciplinary hearing, they impose preposterous sanctions that do not match the offense. So much as we don't believe in victimization or applying a 5-pound hammer to deal with a nut, we feel that the sanction must match the offense. So this is one matter that we are not going to allow police services to get away with. With respect to the issue of torture versus assault, I would like to submit that torture is dealt with in terms of the Torture Act 13 of 2013, and assault is ordinarily a common law offense. But the manner in which torture is defined has rendered assault to be a subset of torture. In other words, you can assault a person without torturing the person, but you cannot torture a person without assaulting this person. So we have that level where we would say then torture ranks higher than assault in terms of gravity, and therefore the seriousness of torture would be expressed in the manner in which these cases are dealt with. And that brings us to the next part, which is the justification of why common assaults were removed from our mandate in terms of the IPID Amendment Act 15 of 2024. It was noticed, and let me indicate, Honorable Chairperson, that our clients are ordinarily criminals. These are people that are on the wrong side of the law ordinarily. They are under investigation by the South African Police Service, and during arrest, some display that disrespectful attitude, and minimum force has to be applied. Cuffs were too tight. These are kind of matters in terms of our statistical analysis that we have encountered in terms of assault matters. So in order to focus the IPID and its resources to more serious and more concerning matters, this House, National Assembly, has removed common assault from our mandate. However, if it is assault with intent to cause grievous bodily harm, we still have the authority or mandate to investigate, and such matters will be aggressively be investigated, and the perpetrators will be brought to book. But we did not want to discount the element that our ordinary complainants are criminals themselves. And that is what attracts the police to be next to them and investigating them and arresting them, and these counter charges of assault. And the issue of discharge of firearm, the Parliament has considered it thoroughly and thought that it is a management function of SAPS to count the bullets. How many bullets were issued, how many were discharged. If they do not cause any harm, why would that invite IPID to investigate? Because that reduces IPID to counting the bullets that were issued and that were discharged. So subsequently, that particular offense was removed from our mandate so that we focus on those serious issues, particularly given the fact that in, as we might be aware, criminal activities are now moving from physical space into cyberspace. So IPID has to reposition and repurpose itself to cope with the effects of fourth industrial revolution and artificial intelligence and stuff like that. I hope I have responded to all questions assigned to me. Thank you.
Evening, Chairperson, Minister DM, honorable members, and protocol, all protocol observed. I just want to respond first to the question that relates to the question that was posed by Honorable Skosana with regard to matters that are sitting with IDEC. I want to say that the transfer of the dockets took place during the COVID period, during the peak of COVID. At the time, it was just after the establishment of the independent Directorate, ID. Now, at the time, there was, when ID was established, then there was a need that all entities, your SAPS, your DPCI, SIU, IPID, should come together because they didn't have, at the time, they didn't have the investigative capacity because it was an entity established under the National Prosecuting Authority. As a result of that, when the decision was taken, IPID had to second some of the investigators. But remember, there were specific dockets that IPID had at the time, which were allegedly linked to state capture. So to be precise, I think we are talking about 92 of the cases that some were indirectly linked to those matters. For instance, you'll have that primary charge, and there would be some secondary cases that will follow. So that made up a huge number of cases. Your IV1, IV2, IV3, and so on. Now, when that secondment occurred, so they had to
leave those that do not necessarily fall into the state capture category. So there had to be some discussions, which I picked at the time, and I remember it was the Mr. Steady that was acting at the time. And I'm sorry to put you on the spot. You are my colleague. I'm not supposed to be doing that. And the legal on my left, we were all uncomfortable with the approach at the time because we felt strongly that we had made significant progress on the matters. And for us, we would have gained some mileage in some ways because we wanted to access the CARA funding as well with all of that. And when bread is taken out of your mouth, sometimes it becomes difficult. But then those matters were taken. But subsequent to that, we had to relent and allow the situation to be the way it was. And then eventually, of course, IDEC was fully constituted and they absorbed those colleagues of ours that we initially seconded. So that's how those cases went there. But there was paperwork that was done in terms of the process. So that's how we then lost those cases and the benefits thereof. Now, coming to Nathaniel Julie's matter, it's a case that relates to the El Dorado Park police station with Scorpion, the sergeant who was together with a constable. And it happened that a shotgun was used to murder the young boy. And the matter, as we are sitting here, is at court. So at this point in time, we are comfortable that justice will be served, and we want to assure this House that we are prioritizing the matter, we are following up on it, we are monitoring the matter. So we get reports on regular basis just to check if everything is still in order. It's investigated by the investigators in the Gauteng province. And the decline to prosecute, what could be the reason why NPA would decline to prosecute matters? Our investigation approach, it's a bit different in a sense that we believe that arresting a police officer is the last option unless it's a matter that it's really glaring. And why we have taken this posture is because we are trying to avoid unnecessary lawsuits against the minister. Because many a times when we refer, and the stats, if you might have noticed, is that many of our cases are declined by the DPP because that's where we are referring our matters. And many a times is that the police would have acted within the limits of the law. An example was cited that the police are chasing these vehicles that is carrying a whole lot of money. I mean, the criminals. And the police have got information and they have to engage these criminals. Obviously, we will do everything to the point. But we are taking this matter to court, to the DPP, knowing pretty well that the DPP is going to decline. And where will it end? At the inquest, formal or informal inquest. So that is the route. But yes, we do acknowledge that sometimes it's a single witness. If it's a single witness, what does the law say? The preponderance of doubt should be given to who? To the accused. So now it's a bit of a problem when it comes to that. And sometimes it's worrying in a sense that the witness would be correct that I was tortured by people, by the police who were wearing balaclavas without name tags. It becomes very, very tricky. And maybe something that honorable members you should look into it very, very serious. Our torture cases will not move. We will struggle to make exploits because of the police are wearing balaclavas and not wearing name tags. Why would we have police who are not wearing, who are covering themselves and doing operations at night? That's not policing. So in some instances, of course, it's insufficient evidence. And sometimes recalcitrant witnesses. Some witnesses, they are not there to help us to solve our matters. So those are some of the things that you may want to blame NPA, but you'll find that NPA is not really a problem. Of course, sometimes they will also raise concerns that the quality of our statements are not so good by some individual investigators. It's something that we are looking at, and we are currently making sure that we enlist quality assurance. Because once we have quality assurance, then we will be able to mitigate against that. But also that will be augmented by the training interventions that we are rolling out because we have identified some gaps. And I think that should be, the last one, the no steps to be taken. We have pleaded with the SAPS for a very, very long time. And this matter was dealt with previously, but the recurrence of that, it's a problem because you are not taking steps. We are saying implement, we have investigated, but then SAPS wants to re-investigate in line with their disciplinary regulations. Now, where that becomes a problem, this person has opened a case against SAPS. Now SAPS goes to this person, another member of SAPS. This person was traumatized by SAPS. Then SAPS comes and say, we are dealing with your matter. But this person knows that, no, my matter as far as I'm concerned is dealt with by IPID. So we have pleaded with SAPS that at least if you are not sure or you want clarity, do it, engage our witness through us so that the witness may be comfortable. So we are struggling in that aspect. So it would be better off that we strengthen this coordination and we make sure that our witnesses are not intimidated, because it's another way of intimidating a witness. So those are some of the challenges. Thank you.
Minister? Yes, I'm going to hand over to, I see General Musikidi would like to say something. General?
Thank you, Chair. I thought I need to respond, and I think the observation that the honourable members have made are noted. The message will be conveyed, Chairperson. But then what triggers me to want to respond, I thought my colleague Ntate Ramafoko did touch on the matter that I want to respond to. And when he was talking, I thought I was covered, but the latter speaker now, I think requests me to at least respond, because I don't want to leave this house with the perceptions that SAPS it's redoing what has been done by IPID. And my colleague did indicated correctly that what IPID will do are recommendations. And if a chairperson will just have to subject people to sanctions on recommendation, we will be subjected, all of us, for litigations that I think it was highlighted earlier that if you don't do it correct, you likely have to face the issues of litigation. The process of investigation and subjecting a person to a process is what the law of this country has also adopted in terms of criminal investigation, where a person needs to go and be given a fair process of responding and questioning if there are issues against him or her. So what happened when the recommendations are received is that there are disciplinary codes that have been made by SAPS, and I think, Chair, what needs to happen as well, it's for the department to reflect on the number of recommendations that were received from which I think there are processes that the committee do give us the opportunity to present on those that we received from IPID and how many of those have been implemented. Some will come with no steps to be taken, but when are investigated in terms of the disciplinary code of the South African Police Service, it will be found that there is a case to be answered and the members will be subjected to disciplinary processes. So it depends on the transgression and on the list of the offenses that are applicable or provided for by the disciplinary code, members will then be subjected. And I have noted, Chairperson, the comments that both my colleagues from CSPS and IPID have made in relation to the consequences that members are subjected to that do not match the offense, which I will also take this back to my colleague, Acting Deputy National Commissioner of Support Services, to look into that. But I want to assure the committee that the department will not take lightly where members have tracked the name of the department otherwise and just leave that matter that IPID has presented to it, because that will cause even more challenges and problems within the department itself to be able to deal with the matters of discipline. So we are not taking them lightly, and I want to assure our colleagues from IPID that we do everything humanly possible to make sure that we also manage and contain and make sure that we do have a disciplined organization that will make us proud when we are wearing this blue uniform, that there is no doubt. And the department has done that itself, that hence the establishment of anti-corruption as well, where IPID is not investigating on your systematic corruption, but any other corruption, we do investigate ourselves. And there are many members that have been made to change the blue uniform that were investigated by the department itself. So we can present cases where we have investigated ourselves as the SAPS and people were subjected to, or they changed the uniform to that of grey, of orange. So there should be a fairness when a person has been, or there is a case against a person, or there are allegations. Allegations will remain allegations until a person is proven otherwise in the court of law. And lastly, Chairperson, is on the issues of the dockets. Luckily, when the ID was open, I was the head of the detectives in the South African Police Service, and my colleague have covered me correctly that there were processes that were followed, there were lists that were made, these dockets were transferred, and I want to believe that even the system will reflect that they were transferred from which department to another department so that we can have a trace of these dockets. Hence, we will be in the position to indicate how many dockets that were recorded and captured on our systems that are elsewhere, so they will reflect where the docket is investigated. However, with the case numbers that were provided or case numbers that were provided, Chairperson will still have to go look into whether the correct transfer of these particular matters happened, and if there are any challenges, we'll rectify them and we'll come back and report on the processes and the steps that were undertaken to correct that was wrong. If dockets were transferred incorrectly, it will be corrected. I think much as there are issues between the departments within the JCPS cluster, but there is a working relationship at certain levels, especially at the highest level. We do have a proper working relationship that we will engage our colleagues and will correct it. I submit, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, General Musekidi. Minister?
Just two quick points, having also listened to General Musekidi. I think Member Ghana raised an important issue, which I'm not sure we will resolve today, which is, I mean, I think that IPID and police management have distinct but are also joint responsibilities to improve conduct within the police service. It's a joint responsibility. And so this apparent tension between different standards that are being applied, different norms, because the General is quite right that our labor and administrative law also requires, as a standard of fairness, audi alteram and so forth. And it might well be that IPID comes to conclusions with a different set of norms, criteria, and so forth. But really, what the system aims at an outcome, and the outcome is to ensure that there are higher standards of conduct that are properly monitored by management and IPID. And so this is a question perhaps that we need to go back and look at, and I think that the way oversight is carried out, that's the issue that's been raised, is how does that outcome get focused on in the oversight process. There was just one matter that I hope that the committee will pay attention to, because it's easy for a kind of slippage to occur. I agree with the approach, the new approach that IPID is taking, which is not to focus on common assault. Because they need to focus on the more serious problem of torture, if you like. But I am uncomfortable with an acceptance that in our culture, in our system, in the way we think about policing, that a few kicks here and there, a few slaps, a few is acceptable. It is right that often when an arrest occurs, you're dealing with criminals. You have to use justified force. You might have to administer, put on these manacles and so forth. But I don't know. Perhaps it's an oversensitivity because of just of where we've come from. I think the police should not be encouraged to assault, allowed to assault criminal suspects. It's because there's a slippage there. I think if that is thought to be acceptable, there is no doubt that more extreme forms of assault and torture will occur. That's my view, and I think that I mean to me it's pretty shocking when one looks at the figures that in our constitutional democracy in post-apartheid South Africa, that this is still a problem. The fact that there are people, and if you don't have strong detectives, if police are not relying on proper investigation, then they will rely on force to arrive at the truth, however they might conceive it. So I just thought I'd share that with the committee. So now that IPID is going to not going to focus on common assault, right, for good reasons, the risk is that assault becomes more acceptable, or at least it doesn't get caught, it's not monitored, it's not examined, it's not considered a problem. But I'm sure the committee appreciates the work that IPID is doing and the fact that it's clearly well managed. I think you're right that Dr. Bila has done very well. And from an audit point of view, they've done exceptionally well, I think. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister, for your remarks. I think we've covered everyone, and in detail.
Except the DM is not covered. Not finished.
Honourable Skosana, the DM switched the microphone off on behalf of the Minister. Now, everyone, I'm not going to hold us any longer. Thank you very much for today, for all the patience. It was very important that we work through all of this. It always feels like we don't have enough time, so that is just how it is it seems with annual reports, and the fact that the ad hoc committee is also booked in between makes it challenging to find dates for everything. Thank you for everyone's patience. We want to make the suggestion that on the next round, IPID and the Secretariat must go first. That it's not always waiting for the last shift. But we will program it accordingly. And General Musikiri, thank you for you as well for staying for the graveyard shift too. And thank you to the members for sticking it out. The meeting is adjourned. Have a lovely evening.